Hello, I'm Alex Sword, editor at eDelivery, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar titled Helping Your Business Grow with Better Logistics. The session is brought to you in association with Cygnia Logistics. The webinar will focus on the role logistics can play in a growing e-fulfillment business and offer practical lessons for going forward, including from retailers such as Revolution Beauty, Feel Unique, and Moonpig. I'm pleased to welcome two speakers today. We have Scott Merrick, Chief Information Officer, and Simon Clifford, Sales Director at Cygnia Logistics. After the presentations, we'll move into a Q&A session. To ask a question, type it into the box on your dashboard and press send. You can do this at any time during the webinar. Then after the webinar finishes, we will send out a link allowing you to view it again at your convenience. So without any further ado, let me hand over to Simon. Simon, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks very much, Alex. Firstly, thanks for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about the challenges many businesses face as they grow. We'll also discuss how your supply chain can support you in overcoming these challenges and give you the platform to underpin your long-term growth. But before that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Simon Clifford, and I've worked in logistics across many disciplines for over 30 years. And I've been lucky enough to work with many of the UK's leading organisations and across many different sectors. Now, despite the differences between sectors, I found that customers face common challenges. For instance, how can the supply chain help me grow my business? How can it improve my customers' experience? How can it make my business more resilient or react quicker or deal with the disruption in my markets? I work with customers and I help them to achieve their ambitions by enabling their supply chains to perform better. And this delivers tangible value to their business, and it's something I'm absolutely as passionate about today as I was when I started.
And I'm Scott, and I've spent over 15 years working with customers to help their business continue to adapt and thrive in what has always been a rapidly evolving e-commerce landscape. Basically, that means I help customers have a supply chain systems capability and flexibility that allows them to overcome their growth challenges and give their own end customers a truly seamless service delivery and frictionless experience.
Thanks, Scott. So, some of you might remember a book that was written by one of the management gurus in the mid-80s, a guy called Tom Peters, and the book was called Thriving on Chaos. And it's very clear now that more than ever, disruption has become business as usual. Being confident about how quickly your business can adapt can be a real differentiator when it comes to seizing opportunities and growing your business. There's a good example with one of our customers called My First Years. And My First Years basically make personalized children's clothes and accessories. And there's this quite well-known photograph of Barack Obama being introduced to Prince George, who happened to be wearing one of My First Year's dressing gowns with his name on it. Well, as you can imagine, the demand for My First Year's products went off the scale in days, and all because of one picture. So without doubt, digital technology has been a huge enabler for change. It's changed the way we buy products, how we socially interact, and this in turn has led to huge disruption to traditional business models and channels to market. It's also left the door open for quicker, more agile businesses to grow quickly and then take share from others that have been burdened down with legacy systems and infrastructure. An exponential growth in consumers' expectations has been fueled by new entrants recognizing that great service is rewarded with increased brand loyalty and future sales. Savvy businesses have been able to adapt to this changing landscape. They've taken advantage of the opening up of a global consumer base. They operate seamlessly across multiple channels. They're providing best-in-class e-fulfillment services, and they develop a real relationship with their customers based on a genuine insight into their needs. Logistics has a pivotal role to play in helping businesses adapt to change. You can have great products sold on a fantastic website, but if your fulfillment experience fails to match your brand promise, you'll fail to win the loyalty of that customer. And I've got something of a maxim that kind of goes along the lines of, nobody really cares about logistics until it's gone wrong. And then you really only have to think about the time that KFC ran out of chicken to get my drift. However, get it right and logistics can give you a competitive edge, enabling you to take your customers with you, as well as attracting new ones as you scale your business. Today, our focus is on how technology has driven changes to shopping habits and has raised consumer expectations, and of how you can equip your supply chain to meet these changes. So when you think about technology, you think about e-commerce, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, Bitcoin, even blockchain. And there just seems to be an endless parade of new technologies available. And this can seem daunting. Which do I adopt? Will it reward my investment in it? How much does it cost? And it's just worth remembering that technology is the enabler, not the end in itself. Instead, ask yourself, will it give my customers more choice? Will it improve their experience? Will it make their lives easier? Whether you're a pure play, omni-channel or clicks and mortar business, as the power in the retail market shifts, the real battleground you need to think about when planning your growth is how can I offer the most choice? This is where logistics can be a real differentiator. As an example, basket abandonment is readily influenced by the range of delivery options available to consumers. The broader the range of options you can offer, ideally in real time, then the greater your chances of you converting that sale. By increasing choice, offering greater convenience and a fantastic experience, your customers will reward you with loyalty, repeat sales, and brand advocacy. So, what does choice look like from a fulfillment perspective? As I mentioned earlier, an increased range of delivery options through a range of carriers gives the customer the best choice of options at different prices, and this enables them to make the best decision for themselves at that point in time. At Cygnia, we've adopted Sorted as our carrier management software. Our customers can see how each carrier is performing in real time against a standardized yardstick of performance throughout the delivery cycle. Also, if an issue is encountered en route, for instance, a delivery is carded, then our customer service teams can proactively make a call to the end customer, advising them of the issue and agreeing how it's going to be sorted out. Clearly, the range of options you choose to offer is influenced by average basket value. So you need to work with your logistics partner to ensure that what you're offering allows you to retain enough margin in the transaction, as well as helping you grow market share. Customers are expecting their products quicker, and next day services now represent something like 30% of today's market. And that market is increasingly global in nature. So for international brands, then smooth international payment options coupled with global fulfillment capability is a must. Take, for example, one of our customers, Perricone MD. They're a luxury beauty brand with a strong market in the UK, States, and in Western Europe. Now, in order to compete with local players, it was necessary for us to be able to provide Perricone with next-day delivery potential across Western Europe. For them, the investment in better customer choice is a key driver of growth. Alongside this, in-flight changes to the delivery and strong order tracking and communication capabilities remain important. But as yet, we're not seeing huge demand for same-day services. But they are becoming part of the market. And I think that with a relatively small number of devolved stocking points for a defined range of products, then it may well begin to catch on. The next trend we're seeing is around order cutoff, particularly if there's any element of time sensitivity around the order itself. Today's consumers have been educated to expect more. I mean, how many of us adopted for the Amazon Prime next day delivery option for something we know full well we don't actually need tomorrow? Our customers now want later and later cutoffs, and this places particular strains on the supply chain. Depending on how the order well builds through the day, a late cutoff can require additional and less productive manning in order to be able to fulfill orders placed later in the day. Personalization too is on the rise. According to research by customer profiling specialist Jan Rain, 48% of customers will buy more if personalization is offered. Some brands like My First Years and Moonpig already have personalization front and center. But we see the ability to be able to offer personalized orders as being a big trend for the coming years. And when you mix personalization with later and later cutoffs, you're beginning to push the flexibility of your supply chain to the max. Returns represent something like 20% of the fulfillment market. Though I have to say it's not something we experience in Cygnia, where, mainly down to the nature of our customer base, returns are typically less than 5%. However, offering free delivery and returns is pretty much expected these days, and this is one of those areas where clicks and mortar retailers can use their infrastructure to good advantage by offering free in-store returns, which in itself drives footfall. The whole unboxing experience is also worth mentioning, particularly for premium brands. The quality of the materials, the branding, the presentation of the products in the box, the choice of void fill are all increasingly important, as is the demand for more sustainable packaging options. At Cygnia, we work with about 50 different brands, mostly omni-channel and some pure play. And we work incredibly closely with those brands, sharing and enabling their growth journeys. For some, growth has meant increased personalization. For others, entering new global markets or managing the micro peaks in demand that come from engaging with vloggers and influencers as part of your marketing strategy. All of our customers have taken a different journey to growth and have scaled their businesses in different ways. So in order to illustrate this, Scott's going to share some background on how 3 of our customers have grown in different ways and of how we've then adapted their supply chains to meet their growth.
Thanks, Simon. Trust is everything for Moonpig. It's a key driver for both growth and customer loyalty. The company recorded its 10th consecutive year of sales growth in 2019. When it comes to gifting, timing is everything, and customers trust Moonpig to deliver for those special occasions throughout the year. When we first partnered with Moonpig 3 years ago, it had a limited range of gifts, and Cygnia was dispatching several hundred orders a week. Since then, Moonpig has diversified its range of gifts to include jewellery, toys, chocolates, alcohol and balloons, and its sales of personalised cards has gone from strength to strength. We now average several thousand orders each day, and at peak times such as Mother's Day, we will handle tens of thousands of orders in the immediate run-up. Logistics is vital to the Moonpig success story. A late card or gift is of no use, yet we have to be able to capture personalised orders very late in the day and fulfil them next day to deliver on Moonpig's promise. Systems integration, forward planning, versatility and communication are all critical to ensuring a smooth and seamless service for Moonpig's customers. For Revolution Beauty, the growth has been seen in terms of both range and geographic expansion. Now stocked in 44 territories around the globe, Revolution Beauty is the #1 brand in the UK for Superdrug and for Rossmann in Germany. It is the #6 brand for Ulta Beauty in the US, and it recently announced plans to stock its products in Boots. Revolution is all about fast beauty. It's about getting the newest, most exciting products to market as quickly as possible and keeping the range absolutely on trend across a broad international customer base. Revolution realised that it needed to outsource its B2C fulfilment if it was going to be able to take its service to its increasingly large customer base. It needed not only a fulfilment partner that had a deep knowledge of the sector, but also had the capability to support the rapid growth of the brand itself. It also needed a partner that could support its social media-led marketing approach and to handle flash promotions as required. It is tagged in over 2,000 images a day from bloggers, vloggers and consumers on Instagram, and this activity creates micro peaks in demand for specific products that need huge agility to fulfill. Feel Unique is one of the leading online beauty retailers, selling over 25,000 different products through its website. The business is growing rapidly with 27% year-on-year growth to March 2019. When Feel Unique decided to make the move to the UK from Jersey, the role of logistics was to smooth the transition and ensure there was no disruption to operations or to consumers. In this highly competitive market, this required us as a logistics provider to be able to maintain high levels of peak productivity across an increasing range of SKUs. The solution to this was to develop a Cardex storage and retrieval system to handle over 10,000 lines efficiently. We've invested over £500,000 to improve picking efficiency, enhance security and develop our IT systems to provide a seamless and positive customer experience, enabling Feel Unique to confidently grow its markets without disruption. So in the case studies we've touched on, we've seen businesses that have grown through personalisation, international expansion, range extension and using social media. Each of these different approaches has required specific supply chain changes to adapt to meet the changing needs of customers. Change is inevitable, but when handled well, harnessing the power of technology and the opportunities it offers will enable you to work with your logistics partner to create great services that are unique to your brand. If you pick the right partner, they will be willing to commit and invest in your scaling plans. They will apply creativity and work with you to innovate new solutions that can set you apart. It is also clear that in today's rapidly moving e-commerce market, standing still is no longer an option. Logistics has to be integral to any e-commerce company's growth strategy, and when done properly can enable you to scale rapidly and with confidence. But there can be some challenges to growth. Businesses achieve their growth in different ways, and this can present operational challenges from a logistics standpoint, so it's important that when you're looking at growth, you bear in mind the logistics considerations of your strategies. Firstly, when we consider a business that's growing in new markets, we might be considering a business expanding internationally, either organically or through acquisition. Now, from the supply chain standpoint, acquisition presents challenges in terms of the duplication of systems, infrastructure, and administrative overheads. The amount of work involved in integrating two different supply chains shouldn't be underestimated, and consequently, it's quite often to leave them separate and accept the inherent inefficiency that results, though clearly you can't do this forever. Where the growth in new markets is organic, then the main considerations are around understanding the critical mass that's required to cost effectively set up your new operation in a different region, which can be an incredibly complex process if you don't have local knowledge. In trying to find the best way forward for these sorts of scenarios, you should consider the customer's expectations in these markets and how they differ to your core markets, as well as what your competitors are doing, thinking about how you can differentiate your service to give competitive advantage. You will also need to assess risks, such as resellers buying in bulk and how you might control these. You also need to look at inventory in terms of localization and how to forecast and plan stock efficiently. Growth can be achieved through a wide range of service innovations, such as extending your order cutoff to capture more of the day's trading compared to your competitors, personalization of the fulfillment experience, for instance, in using personalized delivery notes that promote upselling, or even as we do with one of our customers, T2, in writing handwritten gift messages. And also some brands are highly skilled at using machine learning to improve content and enhance customization to increase sales. Each of these strategies will place different demands on your supply chain, and close partnership is needed to ensure that the service matches your promise. Innovation is key to growing your market. For Revolution Beauty, the rapid rollout of new high-quality products helps drive brand recognition and growth. Behind the scenes, you need to work with your fulfillment and logistics partner to ensure a new product launch is successful. The last thing you want to do is overstock or run out of stock. You need to assess what's realistic from a production, stock, capacity, and delivery point of view. You also need to consider how to sell through or disposition older stock, especially if you are delisting older products to make way for new ones. Scaling up a business can take many routes. From organic growth to aggressive acquisition, it's quite common after a few years of rapid growth for the supply chain to become fragmented, and this can lead to patchy service, poor brand experience, and ultimately customer loss. At this point, consolidation of the supply chain makes good sense, whether it be consolidating and focusing range, reducing the number of logistics partners, or standardizing IT systems and processes. Consolidation requires a fine balance of careful planning and rapid deployment to minimize risk to the overall business. At this point, you should not only be thinking about your supply chain now, but how it is likely to develop in the future. You need to ensure that it has both the agility and the capability to respond to new challenges in the future. Many businesses will turn to third-party logistics providers to support their growth. The move is often triggered by constraints on internal logistics capacity, which limit a company's ability to grow. As operations become increasingly constrained, the company fails to satisfy an increase in service expectations. The key here is to recognise the limitations of your supply chain and plan to its current capacity, whilst at the same time looking ahead at the options to increase supply chain capacity to handle future growth and service evolution. Identifying potential partners to support business expansion should be planned early to ensure a smooth transition. Most 3PLs have the expertise to enhance services and create efficiencies in a way that will stimulate continuous growth. A relationship based on flexibility and close collaboration rather than a one-size-fits-all business model is key to making the partnership work and generate new opportunities.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so we've looked at the different ways in which e-commerce businesses can grow, and we've talked about some of the supply chain impacts that this creates. Supporting companies that are experiencing rapid growth is something that we love doing, and that's why we're here today. We don't have a fixed business model. We've found over the years that they're just not flexible enough to cope with the different needs of different customers. We do have years of combined experience, and this enables us to be expert problem solvers when it comes to scaling fulfillment and logistics. Now, not all business growth is fraught with problems. It's an exciting time for many. But just to close off today's presentation, here are some of our main tips for smoothing the journey. Firstly, plan with rigor. Scenario planning is vital, and it requires an honest appraisal of all future opportunities and risks. You need to take into account the whole supply chain and plan to tomorrow as well as today. Keep your customer wants and needs at the forefront and involve others, including your 3PL, to ensure all bases are covered. Secondly, be open. Cast your net wide for new ideas. Identify and listen to expert partners who are prepared to work hard to understand your specific challenges and how to resolve them. And this is typically where an expert 3PL should be able to add most value. Lead the charge. Act with authority and make informed decisions, and then communicate them clearly. If you've done your homework, it shows, and you need to ensure all parties in your supply chain are aligned behind your brand and delivering a consistent and seamless service. Stay hungry. In these fast-moving times, you need to regularly assess your options to ensure they align with your current and future needs. Complacency these days will kill your business. And finally, remain ambitious. Don't throw caution to the wind, but do seize opportunities when they arise and remain in constant dialogue with your delivery partners to ensure that you're primed and staying one step ahead of your competitors. In a business world that's changing at unprecedented speed, collaboration, planning, insight, and trust are now the cornerstones of successful transformation. And as we've seen from the case studies and scenarios, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, no silver bullet. But by keeping agile, adopting new technology, and collaborating effectively, there is no challenge that can't be overcome. It's a fiercely competitive world. You need both the right partners and a fearless approach. The technologies and systems that both drive and support change are maturing, and the knowledge and expertise are already waiting for you to make it easier. So thank you for listening. We've had, I think, a number of questions coming through, so I'm going to hand you back to Alex.
Great, thanks for those presentations. So we've got a question here to start with on affordability. So is it affordable to outsource as growing businesses already have quite a lot of costs generally?
I think it's very much a case for each individual business, but we see many businesses that get to a point where actually they're struggling to keep up with the demand. So they've been very successful in terms of building an online presence and loyal customers, but they're finding increasingly that their time is being devoted to actually getting the nuts and bolts of fulfillment completed, and they realize that they're doing it progressively less well. And there tends to be a point at which they realize that they can no longer carry on doing that, and therefore they need to look at alternative options. And that often it would be something like a seasonal peak or something that tends to crystallize that point.
Great, and just a reminder everyone, the questions panel is on your dashboard, so you just need to type it in there and press enter and we'll get to it. So we've got one that's come in saying, how can logistics data be used to inform a wider marketing strategy? And the question mentions Revolution Beauty and social media that were covered in the presentation. So can we get more detail on that?
Yeah, I think the amount of data that's generated from e-commerce and logistics gives massive opportunities in terms of trying to enhance future strategies. We've done a lot of work around BI in particular, some data visualization, so that we can then plot on a map of the UK or the world, so you can see where all of the orders are going, and it really does help to visually see where those orders are going. We had it with a customer before where they actually didn't realise that their second biggest territory outside of London was actually Northern Ireland. It was new information to them. Northern Ireland traditionally is quite an expensive quite an expensive area to actually ship to, and it helped them to start to rework their strategy based on that. But there's huge amounts of logistics data, and it really just needs some serious questions asking of it, without limitation really, because you can get some real powerful insights into what's going on.
Great. We've got a topical question with peak period coming up. So what advice would you give for planning for peak periods such as Christmas and Mother's Day when the volume is much greater than off-peak periods?
The key is to work very, very closely with your customers, and to do so in advance. I mean, most peaks are predictable, and so it's about understanding what are the forecasts looking like, what are the plans for the business in terms of upcoming promotional activity, and then sort of looking at your production capacity, and scaling the resource to meet that. So we will typically work closely with a customer and sort of put that capacity in place ahead of the curve slightly, because obviously when you're for us, you know, we may have sort of 500, 600 people in normal times. Outside of peak, that can rise to 700, 800, 900 during peak periods. So bringing staff in early, getting those staff into the business, getting them trained in the use of the systems and such like is all an important part of the preparation for the seasonal peaks. But of course, not all peaks are predictable. You know, we also find that, you know, customers will occasionally just decide to do a flash promotion, and then we'll suddenly get a huge amount of demand just going through a particular part of the warehouse, and we need to be able to be very agile in responding to that and making sure we meet the customer expectations.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Simon's saying there, it's really so key to work with the logistics partner, whether you're doing that yourself or whether you've got a third party when doing that, because we've had instances before where, you know, there's been a quick promotion that we don't know about. It's harder for us to react to it, which then leads to potential service issues. So just be so open and transparent and give as much information as you can to the operations team so that they're ready for it. That's the key out of all of it, really.
We've got a question asking whether Cygnia is available in the Channel Islands.
Not as an operation fulfilling directly from there. We do have the ability to ship to there, along with many destinations around the world, but we're not operating from the Channel Islands at the moment, no.
Okay, and a question here asking for advice on how to assess whether customers prefer same day or next day delivery in relation to the cost difference between these two options.
I think in many ways you need to try it, to be honest. I'll say it does depend on the market that you're in, as to whether that's going to be a viable requirement or not. Someone like My First Years, for instance, where we're doing personalised baby wear, if you've got a gift and you want to get it to somebody today, then same day delivery is very, very important. But it's not always. So I think the best thing to do is just to try it and see how it goes from there. But yeah, it's not for every market at all. But the key thing is to make sure that you're not putting yourself under too much pressure by having to turn orders around within minutes. I'll say just make sure that you're ready for it, really.
And just to add to what Scott's saying there, I think it's important if you can provide a range of delivery options. You know, on your website, you're giving the customers the choice, and so they're effectively making that decision for you. And you know, certainly by using some sort of carrier management sort of integration software like Sorted, we do have that visibility across multiple carriers. So it's quite easy for any of our customers to choose to use, you know, any one of a number of carriers who provide different services at different price points. And depending on how you do the integration, then you know, those options could be presented to the consumer in real time.
I think another thing just to add to that as well is just consider where your customers are based. If you've got a single warehouse, you can't do same day delivery to everywhere because it's not going to be viable. So if you're based in the Midlands and you've got lots of customers in Scotland that want something, it's just not going to be possible. And that's one of the things where people like Amazon and even Argos that are offering same day delivery, they've got coverage all over the country. which makes it a lot easier for them to do. And it's a bit like when we was talking before about international expansion, having that critical mass. In some ways, you're going to need that for same-day delivery as well.
Great, and we've got a question here. Is operating a 24/7 operation beneficial in e-commerce? I'm assuming that relates to delivery.
You don't have to. Again, going back to the use the phrase a few times, that critical mass again. Yeah, if you're operating 24/7, it comes with quite a lot of fixed costs, and you don't always need to be able to do that. Quite often as well, you can be more efficient within a 16-hour shift than you are within 24, and you don't have those fixed costs as well. So no, I don't believe that it is essential. If you've got huge kind of demand that mean that when you come in on a Monday you're facing 5,000 orders, but the rest of the week you're only doing 1,000, then yes, I would definitely consider 24 hours or certainly 7-day working to try and smooth the week out, because you don't want to have those peaks as much as you can. So if you can try and smooth the volume across the weekend, it just makes your life that bit easier. But yeah, 24/7 is not essential at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, we do a bit of a mix and match. So for some customers we do it, but I'd say for the majority we probably don't. The only other benefit, I guess, is of 24/7 is, as Scott says, you're keeping on top of your order well a little bit more successfully. And it also depends on your investment in plant and equipment and such like, and use of space. You may be a little bit more efficient over a 24-hour cycle, but that has to be counteracted by the fact that you are going to be incurring higher standing charges and such like, particularly for staff and things. So I think it's a case of looking at it on a case-by-case basis.
Great. Okay, we've got a question on Brexit. So Brexit is going to mean change for a lot of businesses. What impact is it having on yours?
So, I mean, clearly we're all waiting to see which direction that this goes. But I guess for a logistics business or a fulfillment business like ourselves, that there are a number of areas that are important. And firstly, we're not alone in the UK, and particularly in this part of the UK, that we rely very, very heavily on sort of EU an EU-based workforce. And the good thing is that the overwhelming majority of our staff are heavily invested into the UK economy. They live here, they've got family here, the kids go to school, and all those things. So we're certainly not seeing any signs of any concern around on the labour side. Although clearly, we have to wait and see how things develop in the coming weeks and months. The second thing I think is around international trade. Now, we as a business, we already manage distribution of parcels and pallets and whatever globally for our customers anyway. So we're quite relaxed about the implications. We understand that, and we're already well practiced in managing international trade. So we don't see huge challenges there. The final one that probably is just worth people thinking about is around GDPR. And the fact that where is data sitting, where is data coming from, and how will that data or how will that change if we have a deal or if we have a no deal. And so I think those are probably the three areas. So as it stands, I think we're pretty well prepared, we're pretty confident, but we're also being very mindful to keep an eye on the things that are important to us. And for an organisation like ourselves, we rely on the availability of the workforce.
We've got a related question that's just come in. Does Cygnia have e-commerce fulfillment warehouse resources in Europe?
No, we don't. Although that's something that, from a strategic point of view, is potentially out there in the future. But what I would say to that is, generally speaking, you can travel a lot of miles, you can do a lot of deliveries and handle a lot of volume before you tip the balance in favour of actually setting up an entirely new warehouse, new operation. So I mentioned earlier on, for one of our customers, we already provide a next day service into places like Germany and such like. And so I would say, you know, start by looking at what you can achieve from your existing locations and what volumes and what services you can provide from those locations, rather than immediately saying, yeah, we need to go for a new site with a new system and new people in a new country. There's a lot of complexity there. It's not to say it can't be dealt with, but go in with care, I would say.
Great. How easy is it to start exporting to new markets, and what do people need to think about when doing that?
It really does depend on the product that you're selling, and also the location that you're going to. We have to do quite a lot of work for some customers if they're going to enter any Arabic countries. We might have over labeling to do and so on. So there can be quite a lot of regulation on what you're shipping. So it really is very, very important to get those regulations sorted before then. And then the big bit after that, it's really is going to be the carrier selection in terms of how you want it to get there. Do you want it to be tracked? How quickly do you want it to get there? Also, they have the different price points accordingly. So in terms of physically doing it, it's quite straightforward. You know, we can put something on a vehicle today and it could be there tomorrow or the day after potentially. It's just making sure you've got that regulatory area covered off first, but that varies from product to product massively.
Another question here, do you cater for dropship and marketplace fulfillment?
Yes, we do. We do this for quite a lot of people, in particular for Amazon and eBay. So we have some customers that rely very heavily on sales from there. The key thing for us really is to treat it the same as every other order. So once the order's in the system, to us it doesn't matter whether it's going to Mrs. Smith in Doncaster, or whether it's going to somebody who's bought something off of eBay, who's living up in Newcastle. It's the same order generally. Some of the drop shipping people can be a little bit more complex, particularly when they want you to use their carrier providers, because then you can be in the position where you have to go onto a portal, download the orders, print off the carrier labels, arrange the collection, and at that point you might be doing it for, let's say, 3-4 orders a day. So you've got quite a lot of overhead for not a lot of orders. Whereas if you can drop those 4 orders in amongst everything else, and it's just another order on top, then it's pretty seamless at that point. So it's important to understand that drop shipping is different from marketplace to marketplace. Like I say, the ones that allow you to treat it the same as anything else are very, very easy. Those ones that have particular overhead, you need to be a bit more careful with.
Great. And does Cygnia use their own routing software or third-party software when planning delivery routes of products across the UK?
It depends. We've got 2 types of orders that are going out. So we've got orders that are going out through parcels. So that will go through the sorted platform that we have, and that's got very, very robust routing methodologies in there around weight and destination, and whether the customer's paid for next day or not next day, are they in the Highlands and so on. And then we've also got the palletised deliveries, which are done through a third party, where they route the deliveries through there. But we have the rules within sorted as well as our own rules that we want to put in place on top of that as well. But the key within all of it is to be very, very flexible. Across all of our customers, no customer is the same at all. So we have to be very, very flexible in the application of those rules.
Great. We've got, what's the business threshold in terms of either turnover or any other metric when companies should think about outsourcing?
It's a bit of a how long's a piece of string question in some ways. I think I've certainly come across businesses that have been fulfilling, you know, maybe 1,000 orders a week from within their own garage, and they come to see you, and you know they've just got to the end of their tether with the whole thing, and they're just realising they're having to make the change. So I would say certainly maybe spin it around slightly and say, well, if the fulfillment activity is actually getting in the way of you actually growing your business, then perhaps it is time to look at an outsourcing option. And I think there are different players out there geared to maybe different sizes of business. So we do get quite a lot of inquiries from, let's say, fledgling organisations that are starting out in the marketplace, or or maybe rapidly maturing. And it's always a difficult one because, you know, there's such enthusiasm about the growth of the products, but you have to look at how well geared is the supply chain in your organisation to handling, you know, a relatively small number of orders. So I think it's just a case of looking at each individual company. But I would say if you can get if your business is starting to deliver hundreds of orders a week, then yeah, maybe you need to start looking at it.
Great. We've got a question here. Without naming names, what's been the most challenging problem that your customers have faced?
I think there's probably a couple of things, really. I think one of the key things is to, with all the improvements and services people want to offer, is to make sure they stay cost effective. So if you want to be offering very, very late cut-offs, as Simon mentioned when he was talking before about, you need to be looking at how your order well, how it forms throughout the day. So yeah, you don't want to be making sure you've got no orders in the morning, but then suddenly you've got hundreds of orders very, very late at night that you've got to try and get fulfilled. So that can be a real challenge, just to try and make sure you've always got a good bank of work behind you. And one of the keys there is to, if you're offering next days, also have a standard 2-day service that goes with it as well, because the 2-day or the standard orders, they just become your bank of work, and then so you've always got work going on for everybody. And I think the other challenge is just to find a good carrier mix. We have some customers that will do everything just through DPD, or they'll do everything through Hermes maybe, but mix it up a bit. Yeah, if there's certain areas that will be better priced with other carriers, you don't want to be putting on potentially sending something on a high cost carrier when it's only a single unit order worth £5-6, in which case we'll be looking at the Royal Mail. So have a good mix of carrier options that fit every order type, rather than tying yourself to just one, because it can quickly get out of sync.
And what kind of KPIs do you set for customer service?
In any logistics and fulfillment operation, there's going to be a range of KPIs. They'll typically revolve around fulfillment accuracy, so picking accuracy, on-time delivery, stock accuracy. So I would say ultimately, you know, it probably boils down to an on-time in full measure, and obviously that will vary on a B2C basis or a B2B basis. So we typically would run with you know, maybe half a dozen measures. I wouldn't recommend having 25 of them because, you know, you lose focus on what the key ones are. But I would say have 5 or 6 that are absolutely important to your business. And I would say if you're a retailer out there, you know, think about what's important for your customer and drive your KPIs from that.
Great. Well, I think that's all the questions. So I'd like to end the webinar by thanking both of our speakers for the presentations, and remind listeners that, as always, we'll be following up with an email link to the webinar that you can access at your convenience. So thank you and goodbye.